Hey there guys, Jason from Remax Real Estate Center here. Today we are going to be talking about vacancy rates. I had a buddy reach out to me this week to ask about my area in Kitchener-Waterloo and to give him a rundown on some of the most important numbers related to an investment property when you start looking around. And one of the things that he brought up that I don't hear very often from a first-time investor who's looking to get into the market is the term vacancy rate. A lot of people don't know to ask about this. The vacancy rate is the percentage of the available units in a specific multi-unit property or in a city that are sitting vacant or are unoccupied at a specific period in time. In layman's terms, if there is a high vacancy rate in a city, that means that a lot of the units that are available for rent are not being filled. If a city had a 50% vacancy rate, for example, that means that 50% of the available rental units on the market would be sitting vacant and 50% would be occupied by tenants. It's important for you as an investor to understand what vacancy rates look like in the neighborhood that you're pursuing, because it's going to help you determine how long it's going to take to fill the unit, how much supply is out there that is similar to your unit that isn't being rented, and what is going to happen to rental rates moving forward. In a city where 50% of the units are unoccupied and 50% are occupied, there's not a lot of competition there for the supply. The supply and demand is very out of balance. So that means that rents are likely gonna have to drop in order to appeal to the 50%. Now, in areas like Toronto that are sitting at a 1% vacancy rate, or here in Kitchener-Waterloo closer to 2%, that is still a very competitive rental market. As more and more units are put into the market, as more buildings go up and as more condos go up, there is a lot more supply. But if that vacancy rate is staying around the same, that means that we have an equal number of people coming into the market to look at those units. Now, there is something that's important to note about these vacancy rates as well. Just getting the number helps a lot, but understanding where those tenants are coming from and what is drawing them to an area is also going to be important. If a city has a factory and that factory employs 80% of the people that live in that city and it draws most of the renters to that area, what happens if that factory goes away? Something you have to keep in mind with vacancy rates is that the number is very relevant. 2% is a solid vacancy rate if you're looking for investment. But if all of the renters in that area are coming from a single market or a single industry, what happens in that city if that industry or market goes away? Vacancy rate is all about supply and demand. If there's a lot of demand in an area, that occupancy rate is going to increase, the vacancy rate is going to decrease. As cities continue to build more and more and more, and depending on how quickly they build those new units and new rental options for people, they may be able to keep up with the demand that's coming in and may increase that vacancy rate. The final big point I want to bring up about vacancy rates is that vacancy rates are a good sign of the supply and demand in a certain market. If vacancy rates are decreasing, that means that there's not enough supply in the market to keep up with the demand. What we're going to see in this kind of market is usually an increase in rental prices, an increase in the rental value of units in those cities. I hope this has been helpful for all you investors out there. Vacancy rates, make sure you're asking about them. They are very important to a potential investor. Make sure you include them in your conservative calculations of how viable a rental property is, and definitely don't be afraid to shoot out or comment down below if you have any other questions about it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Bye. Really hope you enjoyed that video. It was a lot of fun for me. I hope it was beneficial for you. If you want to see more from me, feel free to subscribe here or check out another video down here.